There's a documentary that KGW News in Portland put out recently called Tent City, USA, and I wanted to respond to that. It is good to cover the story of homelessness. Some of the greater questions are why do some people remain homeless, or why do some people become homeless? What are some of the economic influences? The producer sat down uh, on KGW News with his staff. And it was really an open, candid type of discussion, I think, spurred on by the producer at KGW. So here are some things from an ex Portlander for potentially the staff at KGW to consider. First of all, as a social experiment, I went back with Portland with nothing but a backpack in 2014. I was already previously known in Portland for doing a controversial yet somewhat popular. I consider myself somewhat of a media activist, putting out news information, but really being an activist and a philosopher at heart. And um, having a facility now called Open Signal played an instrumental role in me living out my dream and having my voice heard. Now I live off the grid. I make just a little bit of doing what I do, but enough to live off the grid. I was able to escape my own home free situation by being a media person. But what I want people to understand is I know what it's like to be judged by Portlanders simply by being home free or homeless and discussing it in my videos. And that should have never happened. It was important for me to learn about it, but the commentary from the news doesn't seem to be aligned with society. The society is just throwing people away, period. It's not people wanting to be homeless or choosing to be homeless. Something's changed within our society. Something changed within Portland. You know, and people don't want to hear about gender warfare, but when there's people in power or even a position of management, and they prefer to have the hot bodies as the type of humans that they hire, or people that look a certain way, we become a society where superficial things have become number one. One of the things that strikes me about some of these pictures is how unique some of these people are. They don't look like ugly human beings, but they don't look like models. And this society has a way of throwing away its own if they're considered too fat and if they're considered too dark or Middle Eastern. Sometimes I wondered if it was my activism that resulted in me getting turned down for jobs when I came back to Portland. The reality of people Googling. Now I live in a town where I filled out 10 applications and I can't get a job. Thank God I have just enough support that I can live off of less than 500 a month and not be on disability. But my story is a little bit more involved to jump from what I've just shared with you. And I would appreciate people do saying this to KGW. What about, do you also discuss how homelessness can be caused by land use codes? I'm not talking about in your city. I'm talking about places in America where people can live on their land without having a $10,000 septic, you know, uh, without a county forcing them to install that first. Who has $5,000, for example, for move in costs, first month, last month, and then, like, say a deposit of $5,000? Nobody. But what about those people that are trying to live off the grid? So I left Portland for the last time in 2015, and single-handedly, as a former homeless person per se, and I've never gotten credit. The media never does success stories on people that escaped homelessness and went to an off-grid reality, because the off-grid reality is synonymous with outlaws, which is very, very sad that living more in harmony with nature or living in the forest or having a real true low carbon footprint. Think about someone that doesn't even commute to work. They literally works at home on a computer, the best of both worlds, utilizing technology that our ancestors did not have. My experience is not a typical off grid experience or homeless experience. As I flip this off. And what that is, for those that don't know, yeah, I'm coming to you from off the grid using 400 watts of solar. That was a battery pack. Gives me about an hour of power if I charge it up during the day. I have other batteries as well and a generator. What I don't see the media do is discuss how rules and regulations in certain counties, as I was getting into, in 2015, 6 months after I left Portland, so by September 2015, 6 months after I left during the last time, um, when it started to get really bad. And I left Portland in a RV that I bought there. I went back to Costilla County, where I had my first off-grid experience. And since they legalized marijuana, they started to crack down on people living on their own land. And I think it was really out of fear of people moving in on that town's own personal growing operations. There's a lot of micropolitics involved in weed that involves some very shady characters for those that don't know. And I'm not anti-pot, I'm talking about the weed growing business. It does have a lot of shadiness to it, um, at least currently, especially the black market. There's been a lot of historical black market weed operations in Colorado and other places. Once it was legalized, outsiders from outside the state moving in were seen as invaders. So I was a part of the wave of new potential residents of a county called Costilla County. If you haven't checked out my coverage, and that's what I was ranting about earlier, this society doesn't even seem to recognize independent journalists that go through the home free experience that continue to document. They focus on people that are really, really down and out, and they don't seem to be providing hope for homeless by their lack of coverage of any success stories. What they do, unfortunately, is steer this around going to Join, or is it Leap? It's Join. It's a program called Join, which I stayed away from. Welfare and Section 8. There's a documentary about homelessness in America, and all they talked about was Section 8. They weren't able to talk about the rules and regulations of the society that are not necessarily needed, that that push people like the faces that you're seeing in this image back into the city. Why has KGW never actually talked about legal issues that are pushing people back to the city? Maybe it's because they've never lived that experience or heard that story. But there are literally millions of people that are living or trying to live the off grid experience because they don't want to be homeless in the city, or they don't want to be another human working at another job competing with other people for the same, right, space. Now, my message to those that are homeless in Portland, my spiritual side has to come out. It cannot be suppressed. Many of you are lost souls. That's why you're living the homeless experience in Portland. It's not a great place to be homeless. The jails are dirty. The people that paid a lot of money to live there hate you, and they certainly didn't trust me. And I'm a person that actually contributed media content to my community. Okay. KGW, who's out there? Who's listening to this? Check out my video, Epidemic of Homelessness in Portland, Oregon, by Alex Ansary, performing that program while home free. Who else has a video out there or has videos out there while they're living the home free experience? It's the shame the homeless go through. I literally made a video 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I was traveling. Why aren't there more homeless people on YouTube? Now there are. But for those that aren't, it's the shame, it's the cruelty, it's the comment section at times, the name calling at times, even the stalking at times, or the police harassment and the way they treat travelers at times. For people that actually live that lifestyle, they go through it all. It's actually because America has become a very cruel place that there is a surplus of homeless in Portland, because for some people, they believe that it is a better place to be because they have not been shown a light. And I think they can do a better job of shining the light on the options that are available to them. And the next topic, which I've been talking about for years, but I've never seen KGW or the media address. You have a massive population of homeless, and a certain segment of them may agree to put down drugs and alcohol and be involved in a work for yourself program where homeless make goods and services, and the city funds a website, or someone does, to where people can actually earn something for their art, their carts, whatever types of. I'm thinking about like real products and stuff. And I think that there is a lot of talent on the streets, especially when some of these people haven't been completely broken down from 10, 20 years on the streets. They're newbies. There were people in this documentary, like the girl in the picture on the lower right hand side with the red hair. She had been on the streets about a month or two and was in the early stages when I was living the social experiment, talking about home free. When you don't do that, supposedly, apparently, to your audience or others, because the way that they would respond. I didn't know that. I thought people would show me compassion. I had a record of 10 years doing media content. Why would people not trust me in a city like Portland, supposedly open and loving and progressive? And I realized, right, The race identity politics, by the way, has not just affected the right. Because honestly, I saw other people, and I even see it now. And I also realize that a big part of it will always be my controversial stance. The mainstream media can go, "Hey, this guy sounds interesting. Whoa, he's a conspiracy theorist. We have a box for him. He has no voice. Who cares what Alex Ansari's been through? Who cares what Alex Ansari has learned and what information he has learned that might be able to potentially help other homeless, his politics aside?" But no, I do believe even today, my views and things that I have shared have been used against me. But yet, do I still think that my experiences on the road can benefit others that are trying to pull themselves out of the hell? I do. I even think I can help drug addicts believe in themselves and understand that their addiction is coming from a suicidal subconscious cue within themselves, and they are the ones that have to find the power to break that. Because I disagree with what a lot of these people are told in AA and NA, that they're powerless. Their problem is that they've forgotten their power. So, in addition to the website idea, as far as the relocation, this is a good place to wrap things up and conclude. And please, for the listeners, send this to local Portland media from Willamette to Mercury. Let them hear from an ex-homeless Portlander what I see, what I have seen, and what I don't even see people talking about in the media. As they go, "Oh, the homeless epidemic and the RV apocalypse, zombie RVs." Yes, let's just use our intelligence to come up with new terminologies, but not deal with the fact that these people have nowhere to go. That's why they're in the neighborhoods. So there were people that when I was living there, they were literally recommending, they were literally recommending Dignity Village, which was not run by, I think, the most honest or kind people. It was like its own little small thing. That is not even close to the type of help that these American refugees need. So there should be land, there should be an area, there should be security, there should even be some rules for people that are willing to be in an outdoor space. So you have an alternative. It's not just living in the neighborhood or going to a shelter. What about a third option? You need an open space. You need an open space. And the lack of your ability to come up with an open space is the greed of that city, the callousness of that city. It doesn't matter what type of mayors you elect or council people. If you don't have an open space for people to get away from the neighborhood, it reflects on the city of Portland and its actual lack of progressiveness, its greediness, the way that it views the monetary element of the real estate, and literally what it's done to society. And again, you're dealing with supposed intellectual people that are working in the media, that are working in politics, that are not able to have a discussion that there are people that are being called criminals for wanting to live on their own land, right? If there was more opportunity given to these people to earn an income or to do something better with their disability income, okay, they could be cleaned off the street. But it seems that intelligence, consciousness, and heart must rise first. When I look at the anchors, they seem more human and compassionate than other anchors, but there is still an element of the act that I certainly detect, at least from the female reporter, that seems very staged and very trendy. See, it's very trendy to call your documentary Tent City, USA, and apparently offensive to the current mayor of Portland. But when you actually look at the rest of the West Coast, apparently it's a lot worse. At what point, though, are these reporters going to look at some of the root causes of homelessness and the elements of our society that are becoming less progressive, more judgmental, that has led to good people being thrown away? Because that's what this is. And I'll leave you with this one more point. No one trusted me to park outside their home when I came back to Portland, despite the fact that thousands of people, thousands of Portlanders knew me. If any voice should be heard, maybe there's a reason why no one wants to hear my voice from Portland. If there's ever a voice to be heard by other homeless, it's mine. There are people that will throw you away by not getting behind the left dominated politics, by being a contrarian, by being labeled things, by being an independent thinker. And maybe that's the real reason these people are being thrown away, because there's something about them or their intelligence that they need to cultivate. And they're not going to be able to cultivate that or find that through a doctor, through a pill, through an AA meeting, or a jail cell, or sitting in a chair at Join. They're going to have to find their soul some way, somehow, because I was straight up, came out of the womb, baby, straight out of Portland, 1980, 22580, months before Mount St. Helens blew. I went through the dark ages of the late 1990s when that heroin wave came through, and I cleaned my life up. And then I started Outside the Box TV, and I reached people in my community. And for years got the compliment, there's nobody like you, Alex, with an independent, non-corporate voice. And then I watched that same city throw me away when it went from Bush to Obama. All over politics, as I saw the counterfeit, progressive, smiley nature for what it really was. A mask for a thorny Rose City. A lot of heartbreak, a lot of trauma, and a lot of stuff below the surface. I would also recommend that the media and others watch my special on the Shanghai tunnels. Okay, and understand there is a connection with the nitty gritty past that your city was built on. And it's fascinating as people try to understand, well, you can't get away from the past that your city was built on because you haven't really changed yet. It's still based on the sex. It's still based on the materialism. It's still based on the dancing girl. Don't you understand that you have a city with a homeless epidemic that also has to be like number one in child sex trafficking and all the strip clubs? But you separate these out into different social issues. You can't see the overall connection. In the same way that Native Americans may receive certain names by their elderly tribal figures, you think dances with wolves. I've always coined for at least 10 years now that Portland, Oregon is the city of the wounded goddess. Okay. So whether it was caused by an ancient event or the foundation of Portland itself, Portland is a dark city that also represents the darkness, the greed, and the cruelty that is sweeping our planet. It can be found in the microcosm. That is why I was born there. That's why this soul, with this knowledge and understandings within me, was born out of the womb in Portland to also have that experience, to feel a sense of need to hurt myself and then clean myself up and then do outreach to others and find myself thrown away, just like these people that are in this that are in this photograph. And I'm still recovering from long-term smoking. It's been a few weeks right now. But each and every day is like a new day that I try to heal from the experience of just living in Portland. And for a city that is so much built on this phony progressive nature, it almost seems to take an act of God for these media people and others to really take a closer look at the reality that they choose to live in. Portland is not the squeaky clean progressive place that they have purported that it is. It is the city of the wounded goddess. It has to do with what's been done to the river, to the early Native American tribes. And there's a reason why lost souls are drawn to Portland. They come to Portland with nothing and thus try to find themselves as they literally try to pull themselves out of an actual toilet bowl of physical urban reality. I'm Alex Ansary, sign off for October 20th, 2017.